everybody, and welcome back to an emergency episode of the Drive Pink Dialogue. And we had to go live tonight because Inter Miami has signed their center back. Inter Miami lands Maxi Falcón from Colo-Colo in Chile. But before all of that, as always, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling tonight, my man?
I'll just say my intro last episode was better. And this emergency episode is not because we're signing a center back. It's because I have officially won bingo. That's why I'm here. That's why we're doing this emergency episode. And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about how I'm the greatest bingo player on the Drive Pink Dialogue. But anyways, there's also some other news with Maxi Falcon, which we're going to talk about. But that's like
why don't we say bingo for the end, and then we'll get to the bingo conversation. Maxi Falcon, we knew basically since the middle of last season that they needed to go out and get a new center back. We knew that David Martinez was potentially a temporary fix. We knew Nico Frede wasn't going to come back. We knew Sari Kristoff wasn't going to come back. They needed to add a quality defender. They did not do it last summer, even though they looked around. They added David Martinez on loan, but they were looking for a second one. So we knew for a very long time that this team needed a center back. They showed that with the moves they were trying to make. And clearly, if you were watching this team consistently, you could tell that their biggest weakness was center back. They needed a step up in quality, and the depth of quality certainly wasn't there. Maxi Falcon is the guy, $2 million transfer fee for a 3-year contract. He's going to turn 28 in a couple months, so we're getting his age 28, 29, and 30 seasons. We talked earlier, like 2 weeks ago, how we're going to get a lot of loans. Turns out Inter Miami is finding ways to buy players outright, and that includes Maxi Falcon. 3-year contract. He's going to be the guy at center back, I believe, for the foreseeable future, and I think he is an upgrade.
Yeah, I would say so. It looks like this is the guy Inter Miami wanted. Again, I love the fact about the MLS, and especially Inter Miami, that all these moves happen without much speculation. They come out of the blue, they hit us like a bus, and we're like, wow, we've done it. Within a day, Inter Miami signed that center back. We've been expecting these moves to happen for a while. I think Gonzalo Lujan was the first sign of what kind of positions we're looking at. Obviously, we upgraded him. We got him as an upgrade on our right back and a center back position, but I don't think he was the out and out center back that we want to go for. And now we have that out and out center back in Maxi Falcon. Great name, great haircut. I'm hearing very, very positive things coming about from the media, from the Chilean media, as well as fans who are familiar with his game. I'm very excited. I may not sound like that right now. I need to up my energy a little bit, but I am super excited by this signing. A little bit of worry with his height, but if Noah Allen can do a good job for us, then I don't see why he will struggle.
I think that this is a really interesting signing because it feels like the first time in a long time we've gotten a player that's in that prime age, 26, 27, 28, like ready to come in and impact right away. The most recent example is Matthias Rojas, but that kind of fell in our lap. I don't think that was sort of the plan from the beginning of the offseason. This is clearly the plan. This is the type of signing I would have liked to have seen them make last year, but they get it done this year. I agree with you. Everything that we've seen so far is quality. People from Chile, reporters from Chile, fans of Chilean clubs speaking really highly of this player. The exception being Colo-Colo fans who just feel a little salty that he's leaving. But no one had sort of a bad word to say about his play style or how effective he was on the pitch. Now, he's coming from Colo-Colo, which is in Chile. That is, if not the best club, one of the best clubs in Chile, consistently playing in the Copa Libertadores, South American competition. So even though the Chilean league is not maybe the Brazilian league, it is not that this team has not played that type of competition. He came out of Uruguay. He's an Uruguayan. Came out of Rentistas, which is sort of a second division team in Uruguay, and then he gets to move to Colo-Colo, which is where he's been for the last 4 or 5 years, I think. And 158 games for Colo-Colo. I mean, he's a real professional. Like I said, he's a prime age player. He's a guy that if you're familiar with the South American market, clearly you would have been familiar with this player. And I like it, man. I like it a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned Matas Rojas, and that was a very good signing in terms of the age profile and where he was in his career and what he could potentially contribute to the team. But that position in itself that Matas Rojas played was not necessarily a concern for this squad. We already had players who could play that position. So despite the fact that he was a very good signing, it wasn't necessarily a imperative signing. Yet this seems like an area that Inter Miami has really struggled to actually find good players in, and we've really struggled to adapt our centre back partnership properly and bring in the right players. And now this player coming in at 28, seemingly a fantastic player in terms of his profile, in terms of where he's played, his experience, and what he can bring to this team. And on paper, this is the exact kind of signing that I was looking for. Someone who's not super old, but also someone who's had a bunch of experience both at the international level or in different leagues, and also someone who's played in that South American culture and environment to be able to adapt to the MLS fairly quickly. Him and maybe Darwin Martinez as a partnership, I think potentially will either put me on the edge or will absolutely put me, in a state of euphoria, because that seems like a partnership that is going to be explosive. It's going to be scary, but not for us. And it's going to be really fun to watch. I don't know if Darwin Martinez is going to be pairing up with him. I have a feeling it's going to be Toto Aviles and Maxi Falcon who start, with David Martinez and potentially Gonzalo Lujan as our second choice centre-back partnership. But it'll be interesting to see where he plays and what his position is going to be, because I do think he's going to come in as that starting centre-back.
Yeah, no, I think he's number one. We've talked about this in every episode, right? Almost, it feels like every episode we've done for the past 2 weeks has just been breaking news on a new signing. But every time we talk about how that number one center back has to be the upcoming priority, they finally get him. And I think that's what he is. He's coming in to be the number one guy. They're paying a real transfer fee for him. He's not coming in on loan to see if he can be healthy. He's not coming in trying to rebound his career. He's a guy that his club wanted to keep. And Inter Miami went out and convinced him, no, you have to come join us because this opportunity is a can't miss. His profile, he doesn't stand out physically. If you watch him, he's not lightning fast. He's not very tall. He's more like 5'10", 5'11", maybe a little shorter than that. But he plays with a physicality, and he's just very smart, and he's not slow by any means. Like, he's just a nice, solid, all-around player that's very intelligent. And is not afraid to mix it up. He gets his head on more than he has any business doing, getting his head on. And listen, it's hard to judge a defender based on, watching clips. You kind of have to watch them for 90 minutes over and over to really get a sense for their positioning and all that. So I will be the first to admit I've never seen him play a 90-minute game. But I like what I see. I like the fact that Inter Miami believes in him. I know that there was some names that they were looking at, and so this is the guy they land on. It looked like Inter Miami was moving past him because they couldn't get a deal done with the club. Potentially, he went back to the club and kind of forced their hand, and the deal gets done. So we get our number one center back. And now this Inter Miami team is looking legit, man. The lack of depth that they left themselves with at the point of the Leo Campana trade, at the point of letting Matías Rojas go and Franco Negri and guys like that, feels like they've really filled that in a really nice, healthy way.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to talk about. All these signings coming in, yes, there might have been some rumors about who Inter Miami is looking at, but these are very underrated signings. These players seem very well thought out. These aren't big names that Inter Miami is bringing in just to appease the fans. These seem to be well thought out moves where it seems like we've done our research, we've done our scouting, and we've gone with players that nobody really expected us to sign. And that for me is a really good indication of where this administration and backroom staff actually is. We had a lot of doubts about this early December at the start of the offseason, and I am getting more and more confident in the ability of Raul Sanyehi and Javier Mascherano to actually pull off these really good signings and these really good moves. So we spoke about this last podcast as well, but I just want to give them a little bit more credit with how they're coming up with some really gem players. And I feel like we may not appreciate it at this point in time, how well balanced the squad really is. But for me, this squad, with the way it's being constructed right now, might actually be better balanced than the one that we had last season. It may not have the same level of depth, but the kind of balance that we're bringing in is really good. Secondly, you mentioned more in terms of Maxi Falcon. His intelligence and his intuition are two things that have really stood out to me when I was doing my research. A lot of people spoke about how he's very smart at reading the game. And that, for me, I think does half of the job when you're a defender, because no matter how much speed you might have or physicality you might have, if you're not aware of your surroundings, if you don't know how the game works, if you can't read the game, you will still struggle in the MLS. Sergio Busquets, being physically so diminutive, if that's the word, and not very athletic, was able to do a really good job because of how intelligent of a player he is. So I'm not really concerned about his stature. I'm not really concerned about his physicality. But from what people have spoken about his game reading, that's what really excites me. And I am really looking forward to him bringing that aggression and that intelligent mindset to that backline, because that's something we lacked. We lacked intelligence and we lacked game smarts. And if he can actually uplift our defensive IQ, that for me is going to be the biggest addition that he brings in, regardless of his tackles and interceptions. It's the mindset that we need.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing about center backs. Center backs and goalkeepers are so much more about a mental game than your physical ability. And that's why a young center back is prone to make mistakes. And we see that with Toto Aviles consistently. He's making these sort of bonehead mistakes. Well, most 19, 20-year-old center backs in the world are doing that on the B team, and they're learning from that. And so even though Aviles has the tools to step up to this level and compete, he doesn't have the mental capacity of what it looks like when you have 150 professional games under your belt, like this guy will, Maxi Falcon. So I like it. I think we needed a guy like this. This is going to be the number one. Let me check if he has any health sort of concerns, because I know that was the big thing with David Martinez is he was just, there were some health concerns. Doesn't look like there's a real health injury history for Falcón, so that's good. I mean, it's just a really, really nice signing on all fronts. Let's talk about where he fits into the depth chart. Like I said, like he's the number one guy. I think we both agree on that. But who does he pair with on opening night? And I think I agree with you. I actually could see it being either David Martinez or Toto Aviles, but I just looked it up. We have potentially 20 weeks this year, or we would have 2 games in a week, which means there's going to be a lot of rotation. And of these 3 guys, if you can feel comfortable with all of them and you're starting 2 on a consistent basis, that's what you want, right?
Dude, we're no longer at Christoph and
I know.
Wait, who was partnering him? Sailor or Nico Freire. This is definitely an upgrade and a half.
Dude,
on our backline.
Listen, remember when we were starting Chris McVeigh and Christoph together, right?
Don't even get me started on that. Like, in comparison to that and the physicality that we have upgraded in that center back position is night and day. And for me, this is going to make all the difference in the world, because now I can look at the lineup, see David Martinez and Toto Aviles on there and be comfortable, be happy with it. I think against 90% of the opposition in the MLS, those 2 would do a fine job. You go to your backups, you've got Falcón, you've got Lujan, you've got Noah Allen. I'm very happy with all 3 starting. Like, I wouldn't bat an eye if any of those 3 start in that center back role. And then you've got Ryan Sailor if he needs to actually come in and plug in. You've got Ian Frey still, who, is potentially, again, one of the better center backs that we have. There's so much depth now in that back line, but more so not just depth for bodies, but depth for quality. And that's what we needed. That's what we were screaming for.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think your main 4 center backs are going to be Maxi Falcón, Gonzalo Lujan, Toto Aviles, and David Martinez. Listen, Martinez leaves halfway through the season, potentially. So we have to be prepared now for a world where that happens. And maybe that means they bring in a new center back in the summer. Maybe that means they activate the buy option. Maybe that means they extend the loan. Like, we don't know how that's going to work. They don't know how that's going to work yet. but that is possible. At the end of the Club World Cup, we might lose David Martinez. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide who's going to be the primary guy between Tota Aviles and David Martinez. But again, you throw in Lujan. I think you got 4 guys you feel good about. And then can Ian Frey work himself into the picture? Can Noah Allen be so good that he demands to start? There's so much quality in the midfield that it makes more sense to put Busquets on the back line, right? Like there is now a ton of quality options at center back, and I feel really good about it. I think they're done at center back.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait, done in the transfer window? No way. We still got a couple more players coming in. Center back, I think that's it, man. You could potentially add another young center back that you bring in as a understudy to some of these players just to make sure, but you don't need to. Yeah,
you have 2 young guys in Lujan and Toto, and then you got 2 veterans.
Noah Allen as well.
So and you have 2 veterans in Martinez and Falcón. So
yeah, and
I like it.
You don't need to upgrade this. I'm very happy with where our defensive depth is right now, especially compared to 2 weeks ago where we basically let half our defensive roster go. This has been a big jump since last season, especially in that center back role. I hope the quality that we see on paper for a lot of these players, I know we haven't seen them play 90 minutes and they may take time getting back into the groove, adjusting to the MLS, understanding the intensity of the MLS. So all of that being kept in mind, I just hope that the quality that we see on paper is exactly what they show, because again, players may have a little bit of up and down in form, and that's completely understandable. But again, on paper, this roster, especially this center-back roster that we've created, is an upgrade to what we saw last season. And I am very, very happy with how the offseason has gone, especially with regards to the center-back role. Very, very happy.
I want to talk about how the roster's shaken up in a minute, because I finally put together all the math and was sort of mapping out how it could work. And so we'll get to that in a second. But just as far as Falcón, can I just say this guy has a chance to be a fan favorite? The absolute best type of center back to have on your team is someone who's 6'3", 6'4", physical monster, can do everything. But the second best center back to have on your team is the undersized guy that just wins with grit. And I think that's what Falcón is. And so give me that over your basic 6', 6'1" center back that's just sort of average at all physical profiles. I want the gritty, undersized player, and I think that's what we're getting in Falcón. You add that to a great last name, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a pretty decent jersey seller compared to the average player on our roster, because I think he's going to be really fun to watch, and he's got a great last name.
For me, that's one of the most intelligent things you said, not with regards to his last name, but with regards to his stature. I think it's overstated how stature comes into play. We've all heard the conversation that Jamie Carragher had about Lisandro Martinez coming into Man United.
None of us heard that conversation, by the way.
That for me is, I think, Lisandro Martinez is one of my favorite players for Man United. He is an absolute monster when he takes the field, and that's exactly what I want from my 5'10" center back. I love Noah Allen. He compensates what he lacks in height with grit, with intelligence, and his ability to actually show improvement and upgrade, right? He's been improving game in, game out, and there were times when he felt like the tallest player on the pitch just by the kind of performances that he was putting in. So for me, it doesn't really matter how tall you are. If he can jump high, if he can jump higher than Christian Benteke, then I don't care how tall he is. If he can put in a tackle on Christian Benteke and take him down, even better. But for me, grit, determination, passion is definitely worth that loss of 2 or 3 inches, because he's, I think, really going to add some quality and some ferociousness to this back line that we've missed. We've got a good setup now.
I agree. I really think that's right. Also, just to say, there are some great names being added to this roster. I mean, Fafa, Falcón, Baltasar. It's a great list. I'm going to try and pull up a graphic real
not
quick.
Too bad either. Sorry.
Yeah, Talasco. We're going to have some fun award names, I think, this year. And I appreciate that. The back line in general, because I want to move to a conversation about what's next. I think they're good at center back, right?
Done.
They can, listen, you can be a fan and you can want them to upgrade here or upgrade there or whatever. But in terms of what they need to do before opening day, I think they've done what they needed to do on the back line. You've got a second player who can play right back in Gonzalo Lujan. You've gotten 2 center backs who can play center back in Lujan and in Maxi Falcón now. At left back, Jordi Alba is going to play the majority of the minutes, but I think Noah Allen is a very capable backup, and I think he needs time to develop into that position anyways. In the midfield, if you get the Segovia deal across the line, especially if you get the Baltazar Rodriguez deal across the line, you have like 6 or 7 guys that you feel comfortable with starting games. And then up front, we have a million wingers. And so maybe just a backup striker. And then at goal, obviously you can start the season with Drake Callender and Oscar Ustari, even if you do want an upgrade or whatever there. So in terms of what they need, I feel like across the board, they're ready to start the season with potentially one exception. But let's leave striker out of this conversation for now. Everywhere else, do you feel like you can start the season like this?
Oh, yeah. Very comfortable now. I think we've got plenty of quality across the pitch, plenty of backups across the pitch. And listen, there may be a drop in quality in some positions. For sure, you can never replace Messi's quality on the right wing, but we've got enough players to be able to do a job and get the result. The rest is up to the coaching staff to try and actually make the best of this roster. But the way that we've put it together, the quality that we've brought in, I'm very happy with it. If I was the coach going into this season, when the first preseason game happens, I would be very excited to see what my players can do, because there's a lot of quality and a lot of different options as well. I keep saying it, and I will continue to say it throughout the season. For me, this balance is perfect. This is the balance that we were missing last season. There was a lot of question marks about players suiting similar roles like Gresso, Matthias Rojas, and a couple of other players just not having different versatility to their play style and basically being applicable in the same sport. Now it feels like there are multiple players who can play multiple different roles, and the versatility that the squad has is going to be super valuable going into this season. Gressel's still on our squad list, by the way. I don't know if he stays or goes, but if he's still there come the end of the transfer window, I'll be very happy with that. I wouldn't have an issue at all. I think he still adds value to the squad. So for me, yes, versatility is the name of the day, and I absolutely love how this roster is shaped up thus far.
So if you're listening to this on podcast, I apologize because I'm using a graphic on screen to demonstrate this. But Inter Miami now has, if all of the rumored deals that are sort of very advanced are on the verge of being completed. So that means Ustari resigns, Gonzalo Lujan gets finalized, Baltasar Rodriguez and Facundo Farias swap, and then the Talasco Segovia deal comes through. Inter Miami will only have one spot left on their senior team roster. And I think they're saving that for a DP or a U22 DP, which means they're out of space to just get depth squad role players. They have no more room if all of these deals come together. So everyone's out there saying they need another center back. They got to get another goalkeeper. They got to get a striker. All of those things are very difficult because you don't actually have much space left on the roster. Now, there are a couple names on here that could be moved off. I see some people in the chat talking about Julian Gressel. He's a name we've mentioned a lot. I think that makes sense because the reasons he came here maybe don't apply as strongly as they used to, and of course, specifically with Tata Martino. And then also he's on a big wage, and if Javier Mascherano doesn't feel like he's the right player for him, and listen, we watched him play last year, and it never felt like he had a great fit with Messi on the field. So that feels like one that could move out, but that only opens up one spot, which means if you can only add one more player, what position are you going for?
So there's the question of the backup goalkeeper, perhaps. There's a question of the striker, maybe left wing, maybe.
I think we have our goalkeeper situation set up because you're going to have Drake Callender, you're going to have Ustari, and then we've been linked to a young kid named Rocco Rios Novo. He's an American, but he's been playing in South America, so he would go on the supplemental roster. That's 3 keepers. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, given the new roster rules, and we're going to talk about this maybe in tomorrow's podcast and maybe touch upon it today, I would go with the backup striker. I think that's still...
It has to be, I think.
I think a goal scorer is there in the squad with Luis Suarez, but again, he's a year older. There's still question marks about his ability to perform at the highest level. People are going to say his knees are going, he doesn't run enough. And in that sense, you do need somebody who can come and do a job for you when Luis Suarez might be unavailable or in a bad patch of form, which didn't happen last season, but there is a possibility that it does happen this season. So you have to be prepared for that. Who's your other proven goal scorer? Fafa Pico, maybe. Lionel
Well, no
Messi,
one at
obviously,
striker.
but
Yeah,
no
no one
one
at
is a
striker.
striker, right? So you do want to bring in that second striker. Putting that responsibility on somebody like Ryan Carmichael, for instance, I think is unfair. You can't ask a academy graduate to come and do a second string striker job for you. So for me, it has to be a backup striker. It has to be a good backup striker as well. So I would almost say that bring in a U22 DP striker if you can, because that is going to add so much to this team. And if you bring in a profile that's slightly different from Luis Suarez, bring in someone like a target man, that would really, really be helpful and give a different dimension to the front line.
So I will just say there's this name that got floated out today named Matteo Pellegrino. He's a 23-year-old from Argentina. He is 6'4", like a nice looking prospect, but he just sort of broke out over the past year. He is at the very early stages. I don't think anyone should be claiming that he's coming to Inter Miami. I heard Racing Club in Argentina is also now looking at him. So I think it's too early to really be thinking that's the guy, but I think it is indicative of the fact that now Inter Miami got their center back. Striker is the next place they're going to look because they need that, not Campana replacement, but the guy that can spell Luis Suarez when it's necessary. And then that's it, man, because every player you want to add from there requires a player going off the roster in a way that's not like for like, right? If you want to trade Robert Taylor and then bring in another left winger, fine. But if you want to bring in another DM, you got to trade one of your wingers or you got to trade one of your center. You know what I mean? Like it's very difficult at that point. So I think they're going to move one player. I think it's going to be Julian Gressel. And I think they're going to sign a backup striker. And I think that's how we're going to go into the season. I think they're going to save one spot for Neymar at the offseason. I know not everyone loves the idea of bringing in Neymar, but I think that's what they're going to do. And if it doesn't end up being Neymar because, you know, maybe he goes to Santos or whatever, maybe he retires, who knows? I think they can then use that spot for Di Maria or Antoine Griezmann or whoever, right? So I think that's the plan. I know people want another center back. Maybe the plan is to let David Martinez go out in the summer after his loan and bring in another player in the summer. So there will be options moving forward. But for now, I think you're going to get that backup striker and then everyone's going to go to South America for that game in Peru. And that's going to be sort of the team up until the summer, unless something crazy happens with Neymar or whatever.
I'm happy with that, man. It leaves a lot of room, a lot of flexibility. There are potential outgoings that can happen. And the good thing about this is if those players don't leave, that's fine. I don't think it's detrimental to the squad in any way. If Julian Gressel stays, I'm happy with that. If Robert Taylor stays, I'll be ecstatic with that. I don't think it's detrimental in any way.
I think Taylor's staying, by the way.
Yeah, so that's a good sign. And if they go, then we're going to upgrade them with better players, hopefully, and it leaves a lot of flexibility for the squad. So overall, I think we've done a really, really good job. At this point in time, I would even say this transfer window is turning out to be a solid 8 out of 10. There's going to be a couple of more movements in and around, I'm sure, and we've got time till April in case anything comes up and we need to explore some options. But overall, this is looking very, very good. And I agree with you. They're going to leave that DP spot or that maybe U22 spot open just in case we want to make some summer signings. But overall, very well constructed roster and with potential to upgrade a little bit more. So happy with that.
Guys, I will just say this. We were not planning to record tonight. We just felt like this signing required us to come on and talk about it because we don't want to make you guys wait. And also we were bubbling with excitement and we wanted to talk about it. So that's why we came on. So we're going to keep it shorter tonight. Tomorrow, we are going to do much more on the new roster rules and how that affects everything. We're going to talk about the preseason and get ready for that Club America game. But for now, we really wanted to focus on Maxi Falcon and what this means for the roster. And I think we're sort of getting to be ready for the season. And I think they've done a really good job. Listen, 2 weeks ago, they had signed nobody. And here we are, 5 or 6 guys later, right?
Well, technically, we've only signed 2 players thus far,
True.
Pico and Allende. So there's still job to be done. We need to get those confirmations. Let's not get giddy yet. As long as they're still pending, I won't be completely satisfied. But as soon as all those here we goes land, and as soon as we get those official confirmations, I think we can start being very positive and happy about the way we're going into the first game of the season. Kansas City going to be a difficult game. And with the new incomings that we've had or potentially are going to have, this roster needs to build some chemistry. We need to understand who's going to be starting, what role each player has to play. So the preseason is important for that. And I think at this point in time, I'm very happy with where the squad is. Hopefully we can live up to our hype this season and get a few trophies.
Yeah, a couple of interesting questions from Russell in the chat. First, why is Kramaski on the senior team roster? Last season, he signed a new contract, and so he's no longer on the supplemental roster. He's on the senior roster because of the new contract. And then Leo Alfonso and Ryan Saylor would be replaced by Bailey and Appia. Listen, Bailey Sparks and I want to say Michael Appia. Oh, man, I'm sorry. They were the super draft picks from last month. They will get second team contracts, and then if they play really well, they can sign to a first team contract. That will all be handled on the supplemental roster, and it'll be easy to deal with, so that you don't have to worry about as a fan. It's really those senior team roster spots that are valuable and that affect the salary, the cap, and everything like that. So you don't have to worry too much about that. I will say, if you look at this though, you see the players that are on the supplemental roster. Most teams do not have 1 or 2 guys that can really help their team from the supplemental roster. Inter Miami has like 5 or 6, and I think that's what gives this team so much potential for quality depth. It's what allowed them to win the Supporters Shield last year. It's what allows them to be competitive on so many different fronts, and it's really a huge bonus.
We've got like 3 potential starting quality MLS players on the supplemental roster. Yannick Bright, who starts for Inter Miami. Even today, I would start him for Inter Miami. Noah Allen, who would start for any team. David Ruiz, good player. Ian Frey, that's 4 players already. And let's not even talk about Leo Alfonso because he's got a really high ceiling, and I'm very excited to see what he does this season.
Well, and David Ruiz is another guy that you can put out there and feel confident in.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready to do it?
Yes, please. This is why I was here. The only reason I wanted to get online.
Guys, you see that? That is 5 bright green circles in a row, left to right, middle of the chart. Inter Miami re-signs Luis Suarez. Suri Kristoff is released. Diego Gomez departs the club. Inter Miami signs a center back, and Inter Miami signs a left winger. Boom, put it on the board. Scotty wins. Bingo. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Have a wonderful night.
You should be happy that I'm not in control of the backlog of this of this podcast. Otherwise, I would have muted you and sent you out into oblivion, because we all know from the Twitter post and from the fan reaction to it that the real winner of the bingo is obviously me, because I don't just have 5 rings in a row. I have 10 green rings in a row. Count me in as the winner, Scotty. Go on, announce it. Say it.
For those that are confused, at the beginning of the offseason, we thought a fun way to talk about what could potentially happen this offseason was to play a bingo and put a bingo card together. And both of us needed Inter Miami to sign a center back for us to hit bingo, and we both hit it at the same time. So it's not very dramatic, but I think that goes down as a draw for both Scotty and Saur, and we'll have to decide who wins next year. Maybe we'll keep this going to see who gets, who gets the most right. I mean, I guess we have the same boards in just different orders, so we'll see. But listen, that's a lot of greens
bingos on the same card, right? We can still figure that out.
That's a lot of greens and not a lot of reds. So I think we did pretty good so far.
Yeah, I think we set up the board really well. I'll be happy to concede a draw here because I'm the bigger man, obviously. But I think next time we might need to pick different tiles and make sure that we have different bingo cards completely, so that at least one of us is an out-and-out winner. But hey, I'm not complaining. First season of Drive Ping Dialogue Bingo, and it's gone well. So well done to you for suggesting this idea, and well done to me for actually doing well at it, because I did not believe in myself.
I remember a distinct lack of confidence when we finished that, that episode. Okay, Maxi Falcon, he's in. I think you're good with that. I think you have David Martinez and Toto Avila swapping off and in as the number 2 center back. And then with Gonzalo Lujan, Ian Frey, Noah Allen, potentially Sergio Busquets, potentially Ryan Saylor, potentially Tyler Hall as guys that can back them up. I think you feel good there. At goalkeeper, they're set for now, right? Drake Callender, Nustari is plenty. By the way, Drake Callender might be our goalkeeper on Saturday night if the Ostari deal doesn't get across the finish line. They'll just have to drag him from national team duty and make him go goalkeep. At left back, it doesn't feel like they're doing anything. It feels like they're going to be fine with Jordi Alba and Noah Allen. At right back with Lujan, Cello, and Ian Frey, I think they're good. Ian Frey, by the way, looking healthy. Was back on the practice field, not 100%, but it looks like he's going to be back early on in the season. So you feel good about that. In the midfield, if you get this Segovia deal across the line, I think that is huge. He gives you depth and versatility at all 3 levels of the defense. So at that DM spot, you got Yannick Bright, you got Busquets, you got Redondo, who's a little bit less of a DM than the other 2. And then if Segovia can play there too, you feel great about that. And then moving forward, you got Redondo, David Ruiz, Benjamin Kramaski, you feel good. And then Segovia higher up the pitch, you feel good about that. Potentially Baltasar Rodriguez or Facundo Farias, one of those 2 as a guy who can play as a 10, can play on either side. Messi, Suarez, Fafa, Robert Taylor, Tadeo Allende. I mean, it's coming together, man. I think they still need a backup striker, but this roster is really coming together and it looks pretty good.
I think we should potentially do a comparison between our last year's roster and this year's roster before the season starts and think about what our feelings are with regards to which we prefer. Because I have a feeling this roster is turning out to be much more exciting than I thought it would be at the start of the season. So all good vibes for now.
Yeah, we on the schedule before the season starts is an episode to talk about if we have a better roster this year or last year. But we'll wait until everything becomes official and really get a look at some of these guys in preseason as well, because I think that's going to be important. Jay agrees with you. So we're just going to kick Jay out of the chat. No, just kidding. All right, guys. Again, short episode because we just wanted to talk about Maxi Falcon. We were excited. We will be back tomorrow with a more normal episode. We'll talk about the MLS roster rules, how it affects Inter Miami. We'll talk about the preseason game on Saturday, and we'll get ready for the preseason, do a preseason primer. So until then, guys, hope you have a wonderful day. See you guys tomorrow, and please enjoy your night. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.